Morning, and we appreciate you coming out here this morning for what really is a very difficult day, I think, for all of us here in the city of Danbury and across the United States of America. So the fact that you took time out of your Sunday morning to remember with the rest of us is greatly appreciated. I'm Mayor Mark Boughton, and I'll be serving as the MC for this morning's event. Later on this afternoon at the Ives Concert Park at 2 p.m., we'll have a formal 9/11 Remembrance ceremony as well, and you're encouraged to attend and certainly invited to attend that. Before we begin any other remarks, I think it would be right and appropriate if we engage in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask our two chiefs, Chief Harold and Chief Baker, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Chiefs?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order!
Thank you, Chiefs. We appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not at a loss for words, but I have to tell you, I've been obsessing over the last several weeks about what to say on this morning and later today. It's really difficult, I think, for all of us who remember that horrible day, September 11th, 2001, for a variety of different reasons. And I don't know if it's because we're so close to New York City, if it's because that we're so close to Washington, if it's because that maybe we know somebody who tragically lost their lives that day. I don't know if it's just the fact that we're on the eastern side of the country, but this day has always brings great emotions about myself, and I'm sure in you as well. It really is a profound moment in our history, and it really was a profound moment in our history. And so for us to have speeches and to say words doesn't really do justice to what happened that day and what's happened since that day. The people whose names are listed on this monument were Connecticut residents. They didn't wake up in the morning and thought that 10 years later there'd be a day or a date that we'd remember them. They went to work. They were a firefighter, a police officer, somebody on the plane, somebody at Cantor Fitzgerald and the World Trade Center. If they went anywhere, they went to work thinking that it was a regular day in their lives. And in a flash of lightning, a flash of light, a flash of explosion, all that changed for them. And obviously for their families, and obviously for our country. So how do you do justice to that? What do you say? What do you put in writing that really kind of summarizes or encapsulates that? I don't know if you can. And I've always felt, and I'm sure you felt too, that there's just always been a little bit of unfinished business related to this entire episode in our history. There's not a real answer at the end, and I think for some reasons that's why it's so emotional for all of us. There's no end. There's no moment when we say we've won. It's an ongoing battle that lasts forever. And I don't know if that's such a bad thing, because I think what that does is it makes us rise to the challenge. We have great challenges in this country. It doesn't matter what your political persuasion is. The reality is that we have to address them. And so we ought to use this day and these emotions as a way to focus on addressing the problems of our great land, regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum. It doesn't matter. Maybe that's the legacy that they've given to us. Maybe that's the gift, if you will, that they've given to us. A rededication of who we are as Americans. And I do know one thing, that the emotions of this day also remind me, as they remind you, as I was getting up this morning, about the fantastic work our police officers, our firefighters, our EMTs, our first responders, and our military personnel who are stretched around the globe. I think it would be right and fitting to give them a round of applause this morning. Finally, just a couple of quick remarks about the monument that you see here. This monument was dedicated in 2004. It was really the brainchild, if you will, of a couple of people. One of them was Father Al Audette, who used to be the priest at St. Peter's Church. Mike McLaughlin in my office. The wonderful artist who built this, Henry Richardson. And a lot of people ask me, it's not that they don't get it, it's just they want to know about it. And it's a beautiful monument to the lives that were led and lost that day. It's made of shards of glass. Millions of shards of glass that were fused together in a process to create what you see here. Each of those shards of glass represents the lives touched on September 11th and the lives touched since September 11th. On the inside of the replica of one of the towers are the names of the victims of 9/11. The individuals that are highlighted in bold are the individuals from the greater Danbury area. The rest of the individuals are individuals whose lives are lost from the state of Connecticut. So I believe today that it's fitting and it's proper that we come here this morning to lay a wreath, that we remember, that we share in the joys of life, and that we rededicate ourselves to what makes this land the greatest place in the world. Thank you for coming out this evening, this morning. Okay. At this time, I'm going to ask Chief Baker and Chief Harold to place a wreath to the right of our monument. At this time, I'd ask that we engage in a brief moment of silence and honor the victims of September 11th. Thank you. In closing, again, I want to thank you for being down here this morning I also want to thank our public officials that have joined us, and I'm going to read their names off and we can give them a collective recognition at the end. No particular order. We have with us our Council Majority Leader Greg Seabury, Councilman Shay Negershev, Councilman Phil Curran, Councilman Ben Shinisi, Councilman Tom Sadi, Council President Joe Cavo, Councilman Peter Nero, Councilman Paul Rotello, Councilwoman Mary Teicholz. We have our City Treasurer Dan Jowdy, State Representative Dan Carter, State Senator Mike McLaughlin, State Representative Joe Tabersack, State Representative Jan Gigler, our Town Clerk Lori Kabak, and City Councilman Phil Cola, City Councilman Dwayne Perkins. I think I've got everybody. If I didn't, I apologize. With that, that concludes our informal, formal ceremony, if you will, here this morning on the 10th anniversary of the attacks on 9/11. At this time, we're going to ask any family members who wish to visit the memorial first to come forward, and then if the public wishes to view after, you're more than welcome to do that. Later on today at 2 p.m. at the Ives Concert Park, we'll be having a remembrance ceremony sponsored by the City of Danbury, Western Connecticut State University, Council of Veterans, and a whole host of individuals. So thank you for coming here this morning.
You may be seated. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for joining us on this very special occasion to recognize the significance of this day with the City of Danbury's official remembrance and commemoration of the 10th anniversary of 9/11, as we all celebrate America. My name is Phyllis Cortese, and I'm very proud to be an American. I'm also the executive director of the Charles Ives Authority for the Performing Arts and Ives Concert Park. And we're gathering here today, as millions of other Americans are doing across the country right at this very moment, to pay honor and tribute to those that we lost on 10 years ago on 9/11. We're also here to celebrate liberty. ladies and gentlemen, the Celtic Cross Pipes and Drums.
Yeah, I was doing that.
Thank
Ladies and gentlemen, the Celtic Cross Pipes and Drums. And now let us stand for the presentation of the colors and remain standing, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Amanda and Robin Higley and the singing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the Danbury Fire Department Honor Guard. The Danbury Police Department Honor Guard. The 2nd Company Governor's Horse Honor Guard. And the Danbury Council of Veterans Honor Guard.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You may all sit down now. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome now Deacon William D. Murphy with St. Gregory the Great Church for the invocation.
My friends, let us bow our heads. We join together today to remember the events of September 11th, 2001. Remember all those who died so tragically that day at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and that field in Pennsylvania. Victims of almost unimaginable acts of terror. Remember all those who, in the words of Abraham Lincoln, gave their last full measure of devotion and often doomed rescue efforts to save their brothers and sisters, people they in most cases did not even know. Remember all those whose lives were impacted by the events of that sunny September morning, spouses, children, friends, neighbors, and our own. Remember also all those who have given so much during the past 10 years to defend our nation and our precious gift of freedom. Let us pause for a moment and remember in silence, each in our own way, the life-changing events of September 11th, 2001, and all those who perished that day. And for our precious gift of freedom, for all those who have given so much for us. Amen.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the president of Western Connecticut State University, Dr. James Schmader.
We're here together today to remember, and we all certainly remember the tragic events of that beautiful sunny September day 10 years ago. We remember where we were when we first heard or saw the news. We remember the horror we felt, the emotions we felt. I know I certainly do, and I know certainly every one of you does as well. But I also remember something else about that time. I remember how the entire country came together in the weeks and months after the tragedy. We were sad and we were angry, but most of all, we were together with resolve as a people. Regrettably, I feel that as a nation, we've lost much of that spirit in the years since, and I believe it's absolutely essential that we endeavor to find it again. The problems of our nation and the world are simply too pressing for us not to do so and not take a lesson from what we're celebrating here today. Thus, I think that more than ever, the examples of the heroes of September 11th hold lessons for us. When the first responders from all over the city raced downtown and dashed up the stairways of the towers that day, they didn't consider whether those they were helping were Republicans or Democrats, Fox viewers or MSNBC viewers, women or men, black or white, able or disabled, evangelical or atheist, gay or straight, citizen or alien. They, the police officers, firefighters, and EMTs, were doing their jobs, saving lives, and in so many cases, they gave theirs to do so. In that, they left us all an example of true courage and of the human spirit at its very best. In these difficult, contentious days, we need more than ever to remember and to act upon those heroes' example. We owe it to ourselves, we owe it to our children and our grandchildren, but most of all, we owe it to the memory of those who fell that day. Thank you.
Thank you, President Schmader. We're so pleased to welcome to the stage at this time from the great city of Danbury. Please welcome Mayor Mark Bowden.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, thank you for attending our 9/11 memorial service. You know, it's really hard to believe that it's been 10 years since the attacks of 9/11. And for the last several weeks, I sort of struggled about what I was going to say this morning and what I was going to say here this afternoon. It's really hard for us to get the right words, the right tone, if you will. And frankly, I just don't know if speeches or memorial services or words or music can really do justice to the lives that were lost and to the hopes and dreams that were destroyed by the events of September 11th. Because you have to remember for a minute, the folks that died in the towers, the people who died in the planes, the people who died in the Pentagon, they had no idea, not a clue, that 10 years later there'd be a memorial service in their honor. These were people just like you and me. They were just going to work in the morning. They were going to enjoy a trip or have a regular day in the office. And I guess since 9/11, we've all kind of grown older, not just in an age sense, but in sort of a mental sense. We've changed. And I also think that a lot of us believe that there's just unfinished business with this. This whole terrorist attack thing just kind of always sits out there in our collective consciousness. Could be a warning, could be a thought, could be the way you look at somebody in the plane, could be a whole host of things, but the reality is that it's just there, hovering over us. And I know that all of us like to say that, you know, we've moved on, that we've let it go. But I can tell you one thing, I can't. And I know that most of you can't either. Maybe it's just because we're so close to New York City. Maybe it's because we're so close to Washington, D.C. Maybe it's just because we're located here on the East Coast. Maybe it's because you know someone, and I know many people who perished on that day. Whatever the reason, when we see movies, when we see photographs, when we see documentaries, when we see images of that day, we are moved in a very deep and a very profound way. So today we pause and we reflect on that day. Our minds go back to a different time. The economy was roaring, American exceptionalism was unchallenged throughout the world, and we were content with the lives that we had built. And in a flash of light, an explosion, our world was turned upside down. We remember the heroes of the day, the little acts of courage and compassion that we as Americans are so good at. We remember the first responders and their incredible sense of duty and their bravery in response to the World Trade Center and to the Pentagon. And we know that deep in our hearts, they gave all. And then when they were asked, they gave just a little bit more. And the sense of community that our country experienced after the attacks was inspiring to all of us. Now we fast forward to today, the world we live in. And regardless, as Dr. Schmatter said, regardless of the political spectrum that you sit on, you have to recognize that we've got real work to do here in America. And I believe that 9/11 should refocus us. It should re-energize us, that we should rededicate ourselves to what is right in America and dedicate ourselves to fixing what is wrong. America, this great land of ours, is and always will be a great place. The place where dreams can still come true. The place where random acts of kindness still happen. Let's not forget that. And maybe we'll feel always sort of having this unfinished business out there, and I think that's okay. It gives us a mission. It gives us a purpose to address the challenges that face our world. So today, we take a moment to remember and reflect on the lives lost on 9/11, the public servants who gave everything that day, and the victims at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and in the planes. Then I ask that you take a moment to reflect on just how special this United States of America is. On behalf of Phyllis and I, my wife, God bless you, and may God bless our great America.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Senator Michael McLaughlin.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. The following names are just a few of those who perished on September 11th, 2001. But may I remind you, please, visit Danbury's September 11th Memorial at Elmwood Park on Main Street, where all of the names of those from the state of Connecticut are enshrined and remembered. Today, as in the memorial on Main Street, we are focused on those from the greater Danbury area. Christopher J. Blackwell, FD, NY, Rescue Company 3, World Trade Center. Michael Grady Jacobs, Vice President, Fiduciary Trust International, World Trade Center. Eric Brian Evans, Insurance Manager, Aon Corporation, World Trade Center. James Thomas Waters Jr., Senior Vice President, Keith Bryett and Woods, World Trade Center. Robert Higley II, Client Services, Aon Corporation, World Trade Center. Candace Lee Williams, a junior from Northeastern University, Flight 11. Thank you.
At this time, let's have a brief moment of silence in recognition of those who are no longer with us. Thank you. Out of tragedy, sometimes you find the pearls of wisdom, the pearls of thought, and sometimes you develop friendships that were brought from tragedy but have been a rich reward in your life. So at this time, I'd like to present a flag to somebody who's been a terrific friend of mine over the last 10 years, Vicki Pratt, who was married to one of the victims in the World Trade Center. On behalf of all of the families who lost a loved one on 9/11, Vicki.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to welcome Danbury City Council member Tom Sadi to read a letter from Senator Blumenthal. You may be seated.
Dear friends, please accept my deep apologies for not being able to attend today on the 10th commemoration of the attacks of September 11th, as I am in New York City attending the ceremony of the rebuilding of Ground Zero. This ceremony marks a solemn remembrance of the precious lives lost, the brave heroes who sacrificed all, and the community and families changed forever by that horrific act of terrorism. But it also expresses our enduring and endless gratitude to Americans who answered the call on that day and the last 10 years to fight terrorism and keep us free, safe, and secure. My many thanks to our police officers, firefighters, emergency responders, and men and women in uniform serving here and abroad, and our veterans who served before them. Many thanks also to those of you who support all of them, families and communities and friends who have come together today and worked together to carry and answer the call every day to make America the greatest nation in the world. Indeed, today we also celebrate the greatness of America. The days after 9/11, some said of the terrorists, they hit the World Trade Center, they hit the Pentagon, but they missed America. Our nation is greater today, stronger, safer, and better because of the courage and resilience of Americans who have served and sacrificed and who continue to do so. On this day of remembrance, we should redouble our determination to fight the terrorist enemies of our democracy and to resolve to never forget those fallen. We know our freedom is never free. We should renew our resolve to keep faith with our veterans and our service members, not just merely in words, but in action, providing health care and jobs and educational programs that they deserve. We must leave no veteran, no service member, and no family behind. I am with you in heart and spirit, and thank you all for allowing me the honor of being able to participate in your profoundly important commemoration. Sincerely, Richard Blumenthal, United States Senator.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you first arrived here today at Ives Concert Park, you might have noticed a very exquisite garden, our center garden. This is our memorial prayer garden, where we're accepting donations today to support Danbury's first responders, the fire department, police department, and EMS services. These organizations and the services they provide to the citizens of our community protect our safety and well-being, and we hope that you'll consider a donation in the Memorial Prayer Garden before you leave today, and we thank you so much for your consideration. And while you're visiting the Prayer Garden, we'd also like to invite you to watch a short film tribute to 9/11 entitled The Season of Our Test, the tragedy, the heroics, the triumph of human spirit, and the memory. This short film was produced by Dr. J.C. Barone in the Westcon Media Production Communications Department. We invite you to watch that as well. Offering the benediction today, please welcome from Congregation Adath Israel, Rabbi Shaul Praver.
Phyllis, thank you. All assembled here, thank you.
I pray, O God Almighty, to whom all humanity call out to, no matter what religion or faith we may be part of. We come to you just 10 years after the attack upon our nation on September 11, 2001, in a horrific event that will be forever etched in the hearts of Americans, in the hearts of all people in the world, and in the annals of our nation's history. This 9/11 tragedy, which traumatically snubbed out the lives of our family members, friends, and associates in the worst assault we've ever seen in our land. It has changed us forever. A virulent stream of bigotry and hate infected the minds of our attackers, and their legions and minions transformed into an army of demons. They poured out their cup of fury upon us 10 years ago that caused the Twin Towers to come crashing down, that caused a horrific damage and loss of life in the Pentagon building. And our brave citizens struggled with the last plane to bring it down to a rural area where it crashed to their deaths. It is believed that it was headed for the White House, and they left us some hope to struggle and to overcome. The mission was thwarted on that plane. In 1 hour, the center of our trade and defense were assaulted and mangled, but not defeated. And we live in the greatest country in the world because of freedom, liberty, and justice. That's why this is a great country. Whether you are an atheist, whether you are a Jew, whether you are a Christian, a Buddhist, a Muslim, whatever, Sikh, any religion, Hindu, whatever your religion is, your rights are protected in this great country. That's what makes us so great, that we can express ourselves freely without the fear of being punished for it. And I want to say just one salient idea, that we come into this world as babies and we only know love. We don't know anything about hate. Our natural nature is to love. And the greatest gem of all religion is returning to that gift that we came into this world with, love. If it ain't about love, it's not about God. And hatred that we saw on 9/11 10 years ago was not something that was natural. It was something that was taught and inculcated in someone through a virulent, infected, rabid ideology that's not about life. And that's what's great about our country. We're about life, we're about improving the world. And so I'm very sad as I remember the images that we've seen again presented for us. It makes it feel like it was just yesterday. But I am also very proud to be part of this great nation, the United States of America. May God's Spirit rest upon us. May we overcome. We've been wounded. We've been hurt. We've been shocked. We've been damaged. But we have not been defeated. We have challenges ahead. Some people say that our nation is going down, but it's not. We're in a hard place right now. But we will overcome through God's blessings, through the power of faith, through the power of just human goodness that we have in our country. We will overcome. And that's my prayer, that in every one of your hearts, there should be the feeling that there's going to be something good that grows out of this, that we will overcome, that we will regain our strength, we will regain our stride once again. We may be in a funk, we may be in a slump, but we're going to get out of it. And that's my prayer. Let us all be hopeful. Let us all take from here a positive spirit and a idea and belief that we shall overcome. God bless America. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. We'd like to invite our dignitaries now on the stage to join the audience, if you will, so you could enjoy the rest of the program from the audience. And now, ladies and gentlemen, in celebration of our great nation, and with the spirit of hope and rejuvenation, ladies and gentlemen, the Danbury Drum Corps. ladies and gentlemen, a nice round of applause for the Danbury Drum Corps. And now from the Westcom Theater Arts Department, the cast of I Love a Piano.
Hello. Sing along if you'd like. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a nice round of applause once again, please. The cast of I Love a Piano from the Westcom Theater Arts Department. And now we'd like to introduce to you for the finale of the program, under the direction of Dr. Fernando Jimenez, please welcome the Western Connecticut State University Wind Ensemble.
Webster's dictionary defines an elegy as a song of lament and praise for the dead, a poem or a song in a mournfully and contemplative tone. The piece that we're going to perform now is called An American Elegy, and it was dedicated to another tragedy, the tragedy of Columbine. So it is very appropriate because of what it was written for, as a praise for the dead, to play an American elegy for the victims of 9/11. let us celebrate America by our playing of America the Beautiful. We're going to invite our senior vocal performance major, Cidalia Alves, from Danbury, Connecticut, to join us as we sing America the Beautiful, followed by Stars and Stripes. Once again, thank you all for being here today.
gentlemen, the Western Connecticut State University Wind Ensemble. They're wonderful. Thank you so much, Fernando. I'd like to take a moment now to recognize a very special gentleman whose dedication and commitment have led our nonprofit organization to take tremendous strides in the past few years. Please help me thank the chairman of the board of directors of the Charles Ives Authority for the Performing Arts, Mr. Steve Greenberg. Please stand up, Steve. Thank you so much for all of your service and dedication and your leadership. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining us here today. Please join us in the Memorial Prayer Garden, and thank you so much. Have a lovely day, and God bless America.